Well, how's it going this morning, guys?
Brexit morning to you.
Yeah.
It's good. Weather's good, man. It's nice and cool. You know, it's hard to keep the studio cool on days like this when it gets humid, so we're good.
Especially when you have a lawyer in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a Metro
Lawyer
by the
Joe.
way.
No Metro.
Did you say
You're
Metro?
the one
Yes.
wearing pink
Here we
today.
go. That's funny. That's funny.
See, I'm not afraid to wear a pink shirt.
Yeah.
It just doesn't bother me.
I'm glad for you. I'll drink my Black Rifle coffee and
There you
wear
go.
manly colors. Thank you
there
very
you
much.
go. Yeah.
Rick, hand me that baby all over there.
Okay, I'm out of here.
We're done.
No, well, we're here today just to talk a little bit about what's going on in jolly old England.
Yeah, moving across the ocean. Moving across the pond
Going
for
across
a
the
little bit.
pond, check in on our former relatives, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Our
Former
cousins
landlord.
across the pond.
That's our former landlord.
But you know, yeah. Yeah, you know what happened to them. We chased them out with pitchforks and torches, but they seem to need some help. We may have to go over there and help them again.
Yeah, it's looking like somebody's going to have to show them how it's done.
Right.
It seems like they would have took notes the first time we did it, but apparently the lesson was lost.
I'm telling you.
There's a couple guys over there that have taken notes. Look
That's
at Nigel
true.
Farage.
I know.
That's true.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with Brexit and the EU, but we're going to kind of try to add a little twist to it. So everybody's familiar with Monty Python, Flying Circus, and some of the great movies they made. Well, we were just kind of talking this through the other day, and instead of just sitting here reporting news and stories that are boring, because the British can be really boring at times, we decided to tie it to the movie The Holy Grail.
Yeah.
And I hopefully you'll find, like we did, how well this thing ties together. I mean, you know, because we're going to do a little history on the Brexit and what's going on, and we're just going to talk about specific scenes in the movie and just how they relate to the story over there, because it's just, it's you can't write this stuff.
No.
It's just crazy over there. So somebody kick us off with this.
British politics have always been interesting in general. I mean, it's been this way since Magna Carta, so it's fun to watch. It's always more entertaining than U.S. politics to a degree, especially if you watch Parliament live. I mean, those guys are a bunch of freaking clowns the way that they act when they start. It's probably the most entertaining politics you can
It's
watch.
almost like pit politics, you
Yes.
know, because there was a lawyer this morning on there. He's a representative in Parliament. He goes, well, I used to be a lawyer, and I'm used to speaking from the pit on the trading floor. And so it reminded me a lot of that, because it was funny as they were going through and everybody's making their points. I noticed that Ireland and Scotland were very verbal and very robust in
They're
their
very
conversation.
verbose. Yeah.
And what I think is funny about that, it reminds me of sitting in a church in East Texas, and the preacher's making a point about salvation. You hear a guy, amen, in the background.
Hallelujah, brother.
And it was just like, oh my God, it was funny over there.
Yeah.
And so they would, the guy sitting in the chair with the white wig would call it, what's he?
You've got the. It's not their. It's basically the leader of their house that controls
Right.
the floor and has the gavel.
And he's the one that sets the law down on
He
everybody,
does.
which I think is funny. And it's funny to watch how they yield time back and forth
Yeah.
versus the way we do it over here.
We do it very structured. I would have thought it would have been the other way around. You know, you would have thought American politics would have been squirrely. And,
Although, did you see this morning at the bar hearing, right? I mean,
yeah.
Pelosi
that kind of turned into UK politics.
It did. Yeah,
Eating
it did.
fried chicken and
So,
yelling
yeah.
at an empty chair.
So I guess what happened after yesterday, well, Lindsey Graham kind of summed it up. He goes, it's over.
Yeah.
This conversation's over.
We're done.
We're done. You know, thank you for doing your job. We're sorry that these guys drug you through all this.
Right.
And I guess there was supposed to be round 2 today. I didn't know this.
Yeah, I didn't know that this was going on until yesterday driving home. I was in Coleman doing some work and driving home about 4:30 and picked it up on the radio. So yeah, it was interesting. I had no clue that they were going to ambush him like they did. I'm
Right.
sure he didn't expect the ambush.
No, he didn't. But he handled them really well.
He did.
He was actually the smartest guy in the room. But what I thought was funny today is apparently in his absence, they put a bucket of the Colonel's chicken
I
there.
saw that.
And we really want to apologize on behalf of America
Yeah.
for the Democrats killing your sales,
Yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding.
because it's literally going to destroy your bottom line.
Popeye's chicken,
Yeah, I was gonna
here
say-
we come.
Right.
Yeah.
Popeyes is going to be creeping up tomorrow.
I'm telling you. So going back to our people and you know, looking at what they're doing versus what happens over there,
Right.
it's a little different semblance of order, because the British have a way of insulting each other in the most polite manner.
Correct.
It is.
That's-
everything that they do is a backhanded compliment.
It
If you
is,
really look
yeah.
at it.
That
The
was funny
Yeah.
when I was reading the articles.
Yeah.
And just it's so wordy how they insult each other.
Yeah.
I'm like, my
Hey.
God, I'm trying to figure out if
Well,
if
it's
he
almost a
complimented me.
compliment. It's almost a compliment.
Yeah.
But then it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's like a mother-in-law complimenting her son-in-law.
Yeah, exactly.
But the women over there are tougher than the guys.
Oh yeah,
There's some tough women in Parliament over there. So what we're going to kind of do is we're going to kind of try to paint a picture, and we're going to. So our knight, our King Arthur, is going to be Nigel Farage.
Nigel Farage.
Because he's the one.
Nigel.
Yeah, he's the one that seems to be the guy that's really trying to get knights to join him at the round table
Right.
for this holy fight.
And he's really the only one that's quasi-sane out of that parliament. And if you look at it in the movie, the king's the only one that's quasi-sane in that whole movie. He's looking at them all like, what the hell's wrong with these people?
It's funny because everywhere he goes in the beginning, nobody's recognizing him.
Right.
You're our king? We have a king? You know? Which is my favorite part was when those two people were in the mud pit digging up the grass and mounting the grass up in a pile. And he goes, I'm your king. Will you join me? And he says, we have a king.
We have a king.
Yeah, who's
We
the
have
king?
a king. Who's the king?
You know, so he starts out on this slow roll. And so what's interesting, I guess, because I don't want to jump too far ahead of that, is that who was the guy before May took over?
Boris.
So Boris was all involved, right? Now
Boris.
May's jumped into this. So a little backstory on this history of Brexit that started in June 2016.
Right.
So let's go to that.
Well, you had the vote that surprised everybody. I can remember I was at work, working at night when Brexit went down. I had back when I had my gun shop, and I was sitting up there building rifles, and remember listening to this as it came through, and everybody was so stunned by this Brexit vote. I mean, people were wondering where it came from, and they would interview people on the street, and it's like, well, yeah, you basically hear what a proud people the British are and how they've given away so much to this European Union that's totally trounced rights, that's taxed them beyond the measure that they thought they were going to be taxed.
Well, the immigration component has to be the big issue too.
That was the second big issue that came up on the street when they were talking to him. First was taxes, and then the immigration. Mm-hmm. So,
because when you look at the countries that abstain from that, you look at companies like Switzerland.
Countries like
So Switzerland basically was like, hey, look, we're
Switzerland's just being Switzerland.
Being Switzerland in this one, And it's funny because they enjoy the same life and work rights under the EU as the UK does.
They do,
but they don't have all the entanglements of these other trade unions and things like that. It's funny because it's broken up into two groups. You have the European Union groups, and you have the EEA countries. Yeah. And what I think is funny is when you look at the groups that abstained. So you have Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway. They're part of the EU single market program. Right. So they're not tied into all this other stuff.
Well, they were smart, and those folks are generally. If you've always looked at, if you look at Scandinavian countries, they're generally fairly business savvy. Now, granted, they've got some goofy politics and how they implement their socialistic ideas, but if you look at it, they control their immigration extremely tight, right? And that when they make business decisions, it's for the betterment of their country. They could care less that who else could benefit. They're out for number one. So it's pretty impressive to watch the Scandinavian countries negotiate these waters. Yeah, and they've always been that way.
You got to imagine what they're doing now, just sitting back looking at it. I mean, what do you think? It's just one of those.
Well, I think those smaller countries have such a small portion of the pie. I don't think the EU looked at them as a big fish to try to get in early. So
are they the tech centers though? I mean, aren't they like the brainchild?
Tech center, and there's a lot of money there. Yeah. You got to look at it. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of oil there. There's a lot of gas. There's a lot of resources there. Right. One, they control a big portion of the banking that goes on all of Europe. If you look at it, their fingers are in a lot of that. There's money that goes all the way back to the war. That's World War II is what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and it's interesting that it originally was immigration that was kind of driving the Brexit movement, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now the whole issue seems to be trade.
Trade unions, yeah.
Now,
the whole
as it
union
comes down to the 11th hour and the vote, everybody is bringing up all of these issues about trade. Right. Hey, we need to be part of the EU. Hey, we're not going to be able to negotiate these individual deals.
So what we're going to do is we're going to work our way through the movie into those different scenarios. So we have Farage is the knight, or as King Arthur.
King Arthur.
And then all these characters that he is going to encounter are going to be these different countries, these Tories, these labor unions, and the immigration issue and all that. So he's clopping his way through.
Smoking his way through England.
Yeah, he's going his way through the countryside. And he's starting to rally his troops. Well, his first encounter is at a castle. And there's a guy at the top, and he kind of says, yeah, who are you? And he goes, well, I'm King Arthur, king of the land. And he goes, you didn't ride in on a horse. He goes, are those coconuts? And it's funny because the significance of that is, it's like, what do you got? What are you coming with? There's nothing really there.
What are you coming as? What are you coming with?
Right. And the funny exchange between them was when the guy in the tower says, okay, so where'd you get the coconuts?
Yeah.
So Arthur responds, they're tropical. He goes, so are you suggesting those coconuts migrated here?
Right.
So, you start looking at the way these things are being introduced to the British people, and this starts to make more sense because it moves into the ridiculous. He goes, well, maybe a swallow brought them. He goes, oh, so you're suggesting...
It's an African swallow.
Well, you're suggesting... Does a small swallow carry a 16-ounce coconut?
Right.
Well, no. Well, maybe it's an African swallow.
An African swallow.
Well, wait a minute. They don't migrate, so it couldn't have been that.
It was two bloody swallows.
And that's funny because it's a way of saying something without saying something.
Exactly. And what it does, it reminds me of the argument that they're having on the floor of the Parliament.
Yeah.
This exchange is going back and forth between the king and country on the method of which we're moving this program.
Right.
Which I think is really funny. So anyway, they move through and they get to the end of it. He goes, well, maybe it was two swallows and they were carrying it with a string. And so I just thought that the irony there was just so funny to watch because now the two swallows with the string is the compromise.
It is.
Because this morning's arguments live, because I actually did watch like 4 hours of the stuff,
right,
is that it's live and they're arguing now about the compromise. And what I think is funny is the Scots are arguing against compromise.
Right.
The Scots have
they're
always
hardliners.
They've always been that way.
Yeah, because their heels are dug in.
Yeah, they are. So they're the kind that are like fighting against it. Then you have a group of Tories that is a small group of abstainers that are really, really causing the problems there. And it's funny because then you have Ireland jumping in because they're worried about their border sovereignty. But
they're Remainers. They're hardcore.
They're Remainers. Yeah.
They believe that if they remain, that they will be able to unite North and South Ireland.
That is true, and
that's what's driving
their goal.
A lot of
that
it.
is their goal.
Yeah.
And there's a big socialist element inside of Ireland. They like the socialist aspect of the EU. I think that they receive money from the EU. They want to. If you really look at their banks, they're very close to collapse in the way that. Cyprus and
Greece
was very, very close to that form of collapse.
So
they're in that chain.
So it's funny you say that because that's our next scene.
Right.
So the next scene is when the guys, Eric Idle is walking through town with a cart saying, "Bring out your dead.
Bring out your dead.
Bring out your dead." So he's got all these carcasses on there. So some of the carcasses we're talking about would be Greece.
Yeah. Greece
is that sick patient of the EU, and it's arguable that they're the ones that really caused this with their financial crisis. Where
didn't it happen to them a couple of times?
Oh yeah, more than once.
Greece has a huge socialist element.
Like, they've always been a problem.
Thievery is amazing. And what I thought was really ironic about the scene was instead of Greek being pronounced dead, there was an old guy in the scene. The guy carried out of a tar hut or a straw hut.
I'm not dead.
Because I'm not dead yet. Dead. Yeah, I'm not dead yet. So the guy, Eric Idle, walks with the hammer and just goes bonk on top of his head. He goes, "You are now," and they threw him on the wagon. So Ireland and so we're throwing Ireland's on the wagon.
It is. They've been. Financially, that's been a tough country to keep afloat.
You gotta know it.
They have huge social programs over there.
Who's that?
Lots
Ireland.
Of poor people, lots of people on the dole, and it's hard to keep that nation afloat from a banking perspective.
When you take a country that has always been agriculturally inclined, or if they're known for just a couple of products, and you take governmental control out of it, and you allow corporations to come in and control these businesses, you really displace a lot of people that don't go to university.
Well,
to get education, so that they can go participate in these open markets, because a lot of old Europe was people that made money from the land, or they made booze, or they started wars, or that. So it's hard. It's when you're displacing that. This is creating part of the problem. This is where the remainderism mentality comes through, because now they have an out for them.
Well, and England's left them behind. I mean, they've left them in the dirt, and that's why they fight so hard.
Well, wouldn't it be fair to say that England has always looked down on them?
They have.
I mean, England kind of has that. The English people look like they're sniffing a turd half the time. When they're talking about Ireland, which is really unfair to those people.
It is.
And in Scotland, what's funny about Scotland is they're the bunch. you don't want to fuck with them.
Yeah.
Because, they invented ghillie suits. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a whole different bunch. It's really a whole different bunch of people. They have always remained independent. They've always tried to maintain their independence.
Well, look at William Wallace.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Look at what went on back there.
Braveheart, the best movie ever.
Yeah, Braveheart. When you look at that and you look at the fight that they put up, it's kind of like Afghanistan. I look at Scotland as Afghanistan of Europe in a way, because that's an unconquered bunch of people that when you bring a fight, you got to fight, buddy.
Yeah, they're in for the full.
No, they integrated into Europe pretty. I mean, they're in the military. I mean, they're not like a sovereign. It's
a different breed of people. It's a different.
Well, we have friends that are Scotsmen, so we know how they are.
Yeah, and they are their own culture. It's interesting when you look at it. A lot of people think of them, especially the Scots and the Irish. They're really two different cultures when you look at them.
Yeah, they are.
It's two different
they'll let
processes.
you know. They'll let you know right away.
They do.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's fun to watch them because the friends that we do have that are from Scotland are like top drawer people.
Right.
But
they are.
When it comes to a fight, they bring it. They are ready to go. And that's what I think that's an interesting component of what we're seeing here.
They're the Texas of England.
They really are in many ways. I agree with that.
That's a very good assessment there.
I think they are. So they're moving through the town now. Arthur meets the Black Knight at the bridge.
Yeah.
Now, I think the pivotal part of this analogy to the movie is that Arthur is trying to make his way to recruit more people, and he has to cross this bridge. And I'm going to look at Arthur as the British people, the people of Great Britain. Okay, so he just witnessed the knight slaying another knight.
Yeah, he's whacking people when he rides up on him.
Everybody's ridden up. Now Arthur's there. And so Arthur wants to recruit him, and he goes, hey, you fought brave. You're a really good knight. Would you join my fight at the round table to restore the land? He goes, no, I'm not interested. He goes, okay, well, I'm going to cross. He goes, no, you're not going to cross. None shall pass. Right. So they fight.
Yeah.
And it's one of the funniest scenes in the movie because the knight is slowly being dismembered.
Well, you look at him and he looks big and tough and he's talked up a big game. Yeah. But when it comes down to fighting, the guy's terrible, really.
Oh, he is, yeah.
Slowly removing capabilities.
But you have to remember, though, so Excalibur is going to be Farage's group of people that are following him. That's the power, okay? Yeah. So when you look at Excalibur...
That's the UKIP group that's behind him. The United Kingdom Independence Party is what we're talking about.
So what ends up happening...
Party.
the Brexit Party.
That's the other way to look at it.
So what ends up happening is that he's wielding the sword of the people, so he has now dismembered the knights.
Yeah.
So the knight's down to one leg hopping like a chicken. And he goes, hey, you're fighting like a chicken.
Right.
And he whacks his leg off and he falls on the ground, okay? So it's funny because he looks at him and, this knight is completely beaten, but he's still wanting to fight.
Right.
So as the king moves through, he's like, no, come back here.
I'll bite your ankles.
Yeah, I'll bite your ankles. He goes, look, you've lost your arms, you've lost your legs. What are you going to do, bleed on me now?
Right.
So he goes off, right? So that is so to me, I'm looking at that and I'm trying to tie it to the fact that this is what's going on within the British.
They're
split.
The MP is the Black Knight. That's who's getting dismembered in this.
Right.
Both the Conservative Party started out with the Conservative Party because there was a split between the Brexit Party, the UKIP Party, whatever we're going to call it here, and the Conservative Party.
Right.
So the Labour Party, which is a bunch of socialists, obviously, they're sitting back and enjoying this. Well, all of a sudden, they start losing membership.
Yeah.
The Brexit Party has built itself around no more than we are the party of leave. That's all we're trying to do right now.
Right.
The party of what?
Leave. We are the party.
Yeah,
of
they're
leaving.
leaving.
So they are trying to. That's all they've got for their platform.
No, I was just from a standpoint of leave or remain. Mm-hmm. All of this kind of revolves around trade issues right now.
It does.
Yes.
And going back to your Scottish post, I mean the Scottish whiskey,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
They all feel like they have some protection from the EU.
Yes.
Is one argument that we're a smaller economy. The EU gives us protection. We want to basically remain. But the other argument is, no, we have all these other opportunities out there to do deals with the United States, to do deals with India, to do deals across the board where we can go in and kick some ass.
And not be taxed out of our minds.
Out of our minds.
That's the biggest thing. You've got... They're a lot like the Scandinavian countries in the sense of their infrastructure. There's a lot of infrastructure inside of Scotland that exists.
I want my Scottish whiskey, by the way.
But no, there's a lot
Keep
of
the Macallan flowing.
Exactly.
Of infrastructure there.
Well, you're looking at Great Britain, though. They're the 5th largest economy in the world.
They are. It's no slouch.
And so, I mean, they're a prize gem for these, for what I'm going to call them European carpetbaggers.
Yeah.
When I look at the countries that are involved in the EU, and I'm sitting here and I can pick off where these rebels are coming from.
Sure.
You start looking at that movement from the east of them moving towards them. You're looking at groups of companies or countries that have been war torn,
Right.
and have been taken over by a socialist or an Islamic aspect that is not being mentioned in these discussions.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
you're looking at a lot. I mean, look at Turkey. We talked about Turkey earlier. And Turkey came up in the conversation this morning about Turkey's bargaining power.
Right.
So we all know that Turkey's been trying to get into this EU for quite a long time. It's a club they're not letting them in.
Yeah, they've been fought for a long. They've fought them for a long time. And it's mostly the western side
Right.
of the European Union that's been fighting them on this.
Right.
It's the industrialized western side.
Well,
of
those
things.
lines are about to be blurred, or they are being blurred
Yes.
through immigration.
That's exactly
Well,
that's exactly where we're going with that.
That's the point. So as Arthur moves past the bridge, we tie that to trade and transport.
Right.
Now, another thing, the secondary gain to that scene in that movie that could happen is if Brexit goes through,
Right.
it takes them back to World War II type border crossing situations.
Yeah, they're going to have to.
You have to have papers.
Papers.
Yes.
I mean,
And some countries may not acknowledge other papers.
Right.
And that's going to
Driving. I mean, driving alone.
just driving.
well, and they're
special
doing that.
permits.
They're making it difficult on. Again,
course
those
they
are
are.
tactics to make it difficult on
course.
purpose for them to leave.
Sure.
That's exactly what that is. It's not that they don't trust them.
Right.
You've been trusting them for 20 years since this has been going on. So
And in the long run, I don't think a lot of that stuff will come to fruition. I think it is exactly that. It's,
Yeah, it's a
being
bluff.
used as leverage.
yeah.
Right.
The European Union needs the UK just like the UK needs the European Union to some extent,
Well,
or
going
other
back-
trade partners. I mean, they're not going to completely segregate.
So that's kind of the concern, would be the non-member influence on the trade unions.
Right.
Because that's really one of the big arguments on the floor this morning is that. It's like, okay, so what's going to end up happening here is that there's over, like I think we said earlier, there's over 200 and something thousand transactions and annual transactions
Right.
overall.
throughout that union.
Okay.
And it was a big number, and I know it was beyond 200,000. And he said, look, just think of the nightmare that's going to be.
Yeah. The paperwork.
Paperwork, the conversions, the paperwork, all the stuff that's going to have to go into this this laborious effort if you leave.
Absolutely.
You know, and so I got to thinking. So you have a small band of Tory enthusiasts fighting this whole thing. There's not wholehearted support for that in many, many ways, but they still have enough to keep countries like Ireland in check. Because there's the question mark. The immigration issues come up almost everybody's speech.
Yeah.
The forced immigration in the country. And if you look at what's happening in London right now, and you look at France, man, and Germany even, these countries are just literally being ripped out. Their guts are being ripped out.
Yeah.
And that takes us to the next scene in the movie, which is the Trojan horse.
Right.
So if you remember, they're storming the castle and they assemble this crazy-looking Trojan horse.
Yeah.
And they try to sneak guys out into to engage the knights. And there's a scene where it's run away, run away. So I'm looking at that as pretty much they're regurgitating this whole forced immigration under EU rules.
It is. The immigration is the weapon which they use to
Right.
control it. The financials are really where the it's at. Okay, I mean that's where the war is really
Right.
fought when you break it down. But the weapon itself that's being used to me is the immigration. That's why they moved immigrants the way they have throughout Europe. That's the tool that they use to get
So when I
things
look
done.
at Turkey in this whole thing, I look at Turkey as Nigeria is to the United States.
yeah,
All the crooked calls you get,
Yeah.
all the theft and graft and all the stuff that's going on is all coming from Nigeria.
yeah,
I believe Turkey's doing that same thing. That's why they won't let them in that club.
exactly.
Hasn't Turkey, like from a producing country, haven't they sort of had an uptick? In
Sure. Because
product-
pollution's not an issue for them.
Okay.
They're kind of like the China of that part of
They
the
are.
world. So at the end of the day, I mean, they don't care how many people they kill. Environmentalism is not an issue. And that's another thing that came up on the floor this morning was this whole global, what do they call it? What's the green thing? What is that?
Global ecosystem.
No, it's Earth in a Lurch. What was it called?
Earth in the Lurch.
Yeah, it's Al Gore.
Wow.
Remember that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was
That sounds like an MC Hammer rap song.
It does,
Earth and
doesn't it?
Alert. Earth
Yeah,
and
it's,
Alert.
it's the whole global warming. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at the global warming came up in the Remainers argument
Okay.
under the EU and the Union
Okay.
conditions, you see. And what's really funny is it also came up on the guys that won a Brexit.
Right.
Because they're like, well, look, we don't want to be polluting either. So we want these controls. But we don't want union to tell us what they are.
Which is the dumbest argument ever. I mean, obviously we're going to produce in our own nation since we're going to exit.
Right.
So do you think we're going to kill ourselves with pollution since this is the only place we've got to produce?
That's the thing.
Dumb argument.
It is, but you just look at how that is playing out, and I'm like, man. So
well, it's a headline. It's meant to be a headline. It's a tool to be used as a headline.
And it's just crazy. So what they're doing is they're searching for the Holy Grail. Okay, so it takes us to this scene where this lone knight is approaching a castle full of beautiful maidens.
Yep.
And so this knight is taken in by these beautiful maidens, and they take him up to the room. He's laying down in bed, and they're kind of undressing him, and they're kind of getting him ready for whatever they're going to do.
Right.
And it kind of reminds me of the whole romancing the. So there's an Article 50 reset clause.
Okay.
I'm glad because I was like, bone?
Yeah, bone, yeah.
Bone?
There's an Article 50 reset clause that keeps coming up to where they feel like it's an opt-out. And so this is the seductive maiden that's being pitched to people in this argument. And what I think is funny about that is that the inside story is if they leave, okay, and they decide it's not working and then they come back, it's at a much higher, it's at a greater cost.
Huge cost.
Right.
And you're giving up huge chunks of control at that point in time. And it is, so they're using that as the lever. That is really the lever.
It's very much mafioso tactics.
It is.
That's their way of saying to the back of the line. To the back of the line.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Because we were talking about that last night, and it was funny how they do that. Because now you're dealing with the 5th largest economy.
Yeah.
And these other countries, I mean, quickly, Australia, Belgium, Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Spain, Sweden, and then the UK.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, all those other countries combined fall so far below the radar. Their only strength is in the union.
Is the
It is.
association.
Yeah.
Well, so many of those countries, I mean, I can look up there and just, let's look at a few of them up there. Spain.
Yeah.
Very weak economically.
Oh, big time.
Portugal, very
Yeah.
weak economically.
Yeah.
Italy, huge economic problems there.
Yep.
So they're really they've got to have them. That's why they don't want them to leave. That's what I was trying to get to when I'm saying it's a money thing. They got to have.
Well, I think we're all on the train with you on that.
I know.
We know that.
Germany is the only other one that can come close to one producing and two the money.
It's money and power.
It is.
It's globalism, money, immigration. It's the EU trying to become that huge leviathan that controls all of those people all over that continent.
Way of saying
Yeah. Well, look who they're between. So you have China, Russia,
Yeah.
the Middle East, now them, and then the United States.
Right.
I mean, you've got this, and these guys are fighting for their place at the table. For them, it's a struggle. It's a huge struggle.
So if you follow the globe in terms of working east, I almost look at it as in some ways it's the level of production. So I'm not sure if I would actually say how big a producer the U.S. is, but if you just don't only look at just physical products that they make, but services, all kinds of stuff that are here, and start working your way east, and then when you get to the Asian countries, that's where it sort of reverses.
So where that happened was that big shift once NAFTA kicked in. So the biggest problem is that they use OSHA and the EPA basically to marshal U.S. manufacturing into the ground, and so the first place they ran was Mexico. So a lot of from the chemical side and from the durable goods side, all that went just across the border. I remember when Levi's jeans left El Paso or Laredo, wherever it was, and they went right across the border. Literally, you can throw stone and hit the building. Remember that?
Yeah.
And all the dish soap that's manufactured in the United States, same thing. It's just a rail car transfer across the border. Because I sold surfactants for many, many years, and it was interesting on how the cost went up to move product across the border, but the price of the product coming back stayed the same or went down.
Right.
And I'm like, wait a minute, there's something hinky going on here. So what ended up happening is that period of time with NAFTA in the United States moved everything to Mexico. Then it moved over to China, because China came kind of after Bush Senior, and so the China trade really kind of happened years later. But look at how much moved. It was 10, 15 years later.
Yeah, something like that.
So China now became this burgeoning commerce partner with us.
Right.
So to go back to what you were trying to say, because I agree with you, when you strip the manufacturing sectors out of countries, you displace a lot of people and you make them subservient to social programs.
You do.
Absolutely.
You put them literally in a food line. And then what you're doing now is who's left to control? The large corporations. And who do you do that through? You do that through union regulations. You do that through EPA regulations. You do that through banking and finance. And
Government.
then all government. So there's your big tie-in to what these guys are fighting through this whole thing.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, right on the nail on the head.
Yeah, and there's so much at play, and so a lot of people discount what's happening with Brexit, but you really need to pay attention to it. Hopefully we're presenting it in a way to you that you kind of get a feel for it, because honestly, if you watch Monty Python after you heard this podcast,
you'll see
the correlation.
Yeah, just read a little bit and then watch that, and you'll go, oh my god,
because there's so much to this. I mean, so we're moving through the search of the Grail, because the search of the Grail basically is they're trying to find a way to make this work.
Yeah.
And save face.
The Grail is to leave.
Yes.
And have money left over when we get there.
And I think EU is looking for partners silently, in the sense of, this brings us to the Farage-Trump connection a little bit.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
And so what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to kind of figure this out as we're going, because what's interesting is that Trump has interest. Well, he's from Poland. He's got connections to Poland. His wife is Hungarian supermodel. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So I mean, he's got 2 of the 14 under the belt here.
He's got himself a little small council.
He's got a little council going on here.
But if Farage, if we're comparing Trump to Farage, they truly are. You're looking at right-wing populist movements.
Yes,
is what you're
for sure.
at.
And which is the common sense people.
Right.
It's not the extremists. And what's really funny is they keep talking about this small group of Tory enthusiasts, and you've got people getting sick, losing jobs. They're getting killed on the streets by a bunch of Muslim invaders.
Yeah.
And you got the mayor of London, he's Muslim, and he's pro conquering that country.
Yeah.
And so you've got this like, it's like a bloodstain. It's that if you stabbed Europe in the middle of it, and the bloodstain is just running across the rest of the country, you have this movement going through there.
That's right.
And so these people are literally in a fight for their lives. And it's going to come down to, because we heard commentary the other day, well, I guess it's going to take civil war on the streets.
It's been I listened at, I won't name the news source that I listened to, but I was listening to a news source, and it was a globalist, it was not a globalist news, it was a global news source. And it was funny listening to people from England that were radio hosts over there talk about having a proper civil war.
Yes.
And they didn't know how they were going to go about it. It was interesting saying, well, how would we actually fight this if it comes down to it? If you look at the division in that country, it's running very deep. You have people, only like 11% are still saying that the party line itself is what's influencing their vote.
Right.
This election. They're coming. In fact, they're coming up on elections this week.
Right.
They're coming off the campaign trail. Their elections are this week. I'm not sure if it's Friday or Monday of starting of next week. The elections are right upon them over there. And the PMs have all gone quiet. They don't know what to say. They don't know where to go. It's like a deer in the headlights over there.
Well, and Nigel's taking full advantage of this. He was here when Trump started his movement and saw how the Trump campaign started with small get-togethers and moved into these huge rallies. Well, look at what Nigel's doing now.
He's almost mimicking it. He took good notes. I'll give it to him. He really paid attention.
He is having Trump-style rallies over there for Brexit, and he is going into labor-controlled areas.
Yep.
He's going into Tory-controlled areas, and he is having a huge turnout.
Right.
And he is really positioning himself, much like Trump did,
Yes.
as Middle England. I'm
the working class
guy,
right.
and we already voted. Get the hell out.
Right.
And this is where we should be.
And this is what I love about this type of movement. So when you push people to a breaking point, the bullshit starts to fall off the table.
Yeah.
It really does, because you're looking at people now that are losing savings, they're losing lifestyle, they're losing their jobs, all because you have this giant industrial corporate machine. So it's all run by banking and finance. There's no arguing.
That's the stay people, for
and
sure.
then, so what they do is they just trickle their way down through the labor unions, manufacturing sectors, and I don't care what anybody says. You can call me and say I'm full of shit, but they make favorable loans to friends and family that are in their inner circle that allows them to build these large mega corporations in this country, and they make it so attractive to small businessmen to sell that business that they don't think about the people they sustain in their network of their businesses.
It's corporate engineering. It's all it is.
They take the money and they run because they know that's their one and only chance to make it so attractive. And what I think is what's really disingenuous about this whole thing is the fact that people will not put their foot on the ground and say what it is.
Yeah.
And that's basically legislated greed. They basically are legislating you into their greed machine, and they're looking at ways of stifling the voice of the people in lieu of the power brokers. You're looking at these big businesses that are taking over food, they're taking over lifestyle, they're taking over your power, they're taking healthcare. They have all this stuff bundled up. And at some point in time, I mean, you could sit there and say, well, we can work our way out of it. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at people we bring into office now, and it's funny because we have a few. I got to be honest with you. At first, I wasn't for sure how I felt about Crenshaw.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know him. But now that I'm watching this guy,
I like him.
Oh, I love him, and I would love to get Trey Gowdy. I know.
You're talking Dan Crenshaw?
Dan Crenshaw. I mean, I would like to get him and Gowdy and Shevitz, and what's that? Jim Jordan, is it the other one?
Jordan.
I'd like to get all these guys in there and start cleaning these politicians out, because you look at people. Biden has been on the government tit for 46 years.
Yeah.
He spent 8 years in an administration that created divisiveness and divide and financial fraud.
Yeah.
And now this son of a bitch is sitting on TV, basically trying to appeal to a middle-class group of people.
The flip-flops have been amazing. It's been incredible.
It's unbelievable. And so I'm looking at the parallels between what the people in Great Britain are facing under this Brexit versus the divide that we are going to be facing in 2020 here.
Right.
They're
funny. Just ahead of us. In some ways, they're a little behind us, but in this instance, they're just ahead of us because the forces.
Ours is Convention of States.
Yes.
Yep. So we have Convention of States in the United States of America, which is no different than Brexit, other than the fact that we don't have that voice on the floor.
Right.
The way our representatives are built is they carry it to the floor.
Right.
Okay. But the problem is so many of them are bought and paid for.
Right.
We only have a handful of them that will even push this.
So two things that I read when I was going through some of because I was trying to look at more recent articles, like when I say recent, within the last 2 weeks.
Right.
What's going on? What are they saying close to now?
Right.
So one of the things that I saw were, just looking at the populace there, is you've had people that have cut off family members over this whole Brexit issue.
Yes,
and like the accusations that are going across, passing back and forth between the elected officials, and basically playing partisan politics, and talking about how they're which normally for a politician, if you were just somebody assaulting your integrity would have been like, that's something you just don't do. Don't call me a freaking liar, particularly if you're not one.
Right.
But now, I heard this interesting comment the other day about telling the noble lie.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my fucking God, noble lie. I would crush you if that is the defense that you're going to use.
Presented?
It's funny
oh my God.
I've
that's the night that saved me.
Yes, yeah, and you know, it's funny because I said something to Ken about this because from an editing standpoint, even in my head or yours, where we would go, you know, it would be funny to mimic these voices, but since I do the editing, I knew in my head, we're not going to go there.
Yeah,
we're not going to go there.
Well, we would ruin I think it would take away, because this is, you know, so we're trying to be lighthearted in the approach, but this is a real serious thing, and we're trying to give you something to really mull over without putting you to sleep. But to go to your noble lie, what I thought was funny. So I guess Wikipedia defines this, right?
Yes, because I mean that to me that my world just opened up when I saw that.
It says in politics, a noble lie is a myth or untruth, often but not invariably of a religious nature, knowingly propagated by an elite to maintain social harmony or to advance an agenda. The noble lie is a concept originated by Plato as described in the Republic.
And it's funny because people will pick and choose the philosophies that they're going to employ. So, you know, I guess depending on what side you're on, you'll default back to like Socratic method of asking questions.
Yes.
So
make it stand true.
In some instances, people are take offense to being asked questions like that.
So it's funny. I listened to Mike Rowe a lot, and he was talking about his adventures building his resume.
Okay.
And he goes, you know, it's funny. He used a word, I can't remember the word now, but he says basically what you're trying to do is by nature you're trying to seek a higher authority or a higher knowledge base of whatever you're trying to do a show on. And he goes, and I've actually proven that wrong. Okay.
Really?
He tells a story, and this is going to be, just go with me on this one. He tells a story about dirty jobs. And so they did a job where they were collecting bull semen in West Houston and artificially inseminating cows. So hold on. So wait a minute. You're going to love this tie. So PETA calls him and raises all kinds of hell with him saying, you're doing that wrong. You shouldn't be doing it that way. So he sits back, he goes, okay, well, apparently they know about animal welfare and they're the safest, the smartest bunch of people. So there's your higher education level, right? So now let's fast forward. He goes to the Rocky Mountains and he's up there castrating lambs with this rancher. No, this
making
is
some fries.
This is bizarre. So before he goes, he calls PETA and he says, hey, he says, I just want to do this show. Last time I caught so much grief from you guys. I'm just seeking the right way to do this castration when we do the show, because they don't rehearse the show.
I got to give him credit for that.
He's a smart dude. And so what he did is they said, well, the best way to do it is to take a rubber band and put a rubber band around the scrotum, and in a couple, 3 days, it just dries and falls off. So he shows up to this guy's ranch, okay?
With a bunch of rubber bands.
Yeah, a pack of rubber bands.
So what ends up happening, they don't rehearse the show. So they get ready to do the show, okay? And this guy and his wife are doing this operation. And so they grab the lamb, and they got this poor little guy up there, and he's shaking. He takes a pocket knife out of his pocket, and he slits the scrotum, and he slides the testicles
just zips
down
them right out.
and bites them off.
Oh, no.
And spits them in a bucket.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, that is hard.
Sorry, saw that conversation go way differently.
Yeah, so Mike Rove said, this is the first time I've ever said cut on a camera. And so they cut the scene, okay? So they cut the scene, and he goes, dude, if this is a reality TV show, and if you're trying to get extra ratings and stuff, this ain't the way to do it.
This is not National Geographic.
Yeah.
You're going to get some attention, but you're not going to like it.
Yeah, you're not going to like it. So the guy looks at him and goes, what are you talking about? He says he was totally oblivious
This is
that.
a real deal.
Yeah, and he goes, this is how we've been doing it forever.
Right.
And he goes, well, we can't do that on a show. And he goes, well, okay. So the lamb that they cut wasn't bleeding, and he was just running around and playing. Okay?
Yeah.
So they get him up there, and they do it the PETA way. So they got this lamb, it's shaking. They put this rubber band around his testicles, and they put him down on the floor.
Screaming forever.
No, he crawled off into the corner and just stayed there for 2 days.
Wow.
Okay? But while the one that they cut the other way was bouncing around, running and playing.
That's like freaking torment.
Yes.
Oh my
so he
God.
basically was saying, you be careful who you choose.
Right.
For your knowledge, just because you perceve them to be.
That is very good.
That's one of the best analogies I think you've ever had.
And I was like, so don't ever he used an extreme way to explain it.
Yeah.
But that's what we're dealing with here with these people. So be
I
careful.
wouldn't rely on PETA anyway.
No, I know, but he got so much grief from him.
Yeah.
He gave them their chance. But what he
Subject
did
matter.
by that is he's proven his theory that it's not always the smartest guy in the room that has the best advice.
Subject
right.
matter experts in nothing.
They're nothing. That's right. It's the guy that lives it every day. It's the guy that has to deal with the scale and economy of what is given to him.
Okay.
So we're looking now at a world that's in a lurch like this. So you have the elitists, okay?
Yep.
So you have these elitists that sit there and they haven't learned anything in the centuries that they've been over there. Much like we're a young republic, okay? And we're in the fight for our life in the sense of now socialism is like sweeping the globe. And we have sat back and just watched this happen.
Right.
It just went crazy. It went crazy on us. So what I want to do is, do you have any more comments on this?
No, I mean, I think we've covered it pretty well.
So what I want to do is I want to close with a quote or a scene from the movie because I think it's really important to the people of Great Britain and the United States.
Is this a
No, it's not. This is going to be from the movie, actually.
It's a moment.
It's a moment.
moment.
So we're gonna go back to the scene where Arthur's crossing the bridge and he meets the knight. And you got to remember that this is a disarmed person.
Yeah.
This person has lost all his arms, all his legs, and all its ability to fight back. Basically, he is a stump on the ground bleeding. So the scene goes again like this. You are brave and you fought well, sir. Will you join me now? No, not going to join you. None shall pass. Okay, you make me sad. You are beaten. You have no arms and no legs. What are you going to do now? Bleed on me?